think of the Kennedy assassination, first word that comes to mind is cover-up.
Well, pragmatically, I really believe that John F. Kennedy was assassinated by one lone assassin.
There was more than one person involved in the incident.
I think it was probably engineered by the mob.
I don't think he was a lone assassin at all.
No, I don't think Oswald did it.
I feel it was a conspiracy, yes. And it was a sad day.
No, I don't believe he did it alone. I believe there is a cover-up with the government. I believe the FBI or CIA was involved in it 100%. I believe Cuba was involved in it.
Harvey Oswald was not alone.
Lyndon Baines Johnson was involved in that conspiracy.
Well, I've heard that theory before, but I don't know if I believe it or not.
I wouldn't doubt any part of the government because they're all a bunch of liars and thieves and con artists.
Emotionally, I want to believe there was a conspiracy.
There's a lot of things that I think are unanswered. A lot of us have a lot of questions.
On November 22nd, 31 years ago today, someone shot and killed President John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. A federal commission concluded a lone gunman did it, but in the years since, millions of people have come to doubt that conclusion.
San Jose man claims that he has solved the mystery that's kept our nation spellbound for these past 31 years.
My name is Cal Korf, and I've been studying the subject for 17 years. I know that there are over 4,000 books on the Kennedy assassination, and everybody's wandering around claiming that they have the answer to what happened over 30 years ago. But I'd like to believe that based on the reaction that we've received from our study, as well as just the history of it, that what we've been able to do in our investigation of the assassination is a little bit unique. I'll give you some reasons why. In 1978 and 1977, when I was a freshman in high school, I decided to do an extra credit report on the Kennedy assassination. Coincidentally, I had been attending John F. Kennedy High School in Fremont, California. In order to save time for the report, I asked my teachers who it was who had killed him, and was shocked to find out that every teacher I asked gave me a different answer. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I couldn't make any sense of it, and we started looking into the case as this extra credit report was evolving. And 218 pages later, we finished the report. My teacher was a little bit shocked. We concluded and found evidence of an individual in Dealey Plaza that day who was on the grassy knoll who should not have been there. We, in particular, used a NASA computer to locate that individual and confirm that that person was really there. And what happened to me after this event took place is what caused me to stay fascinated with the case and to investigate it to this very day. What had happened is when we found the evidence of a person on the grassy knoll who should not have been there, it made the media. In fact, here are some newspaper clippings of some of the media coverage that came out at the time. This is the San Jose Mercury News. This other clipping here is from Stanford University. Well, the following Monday, after these newspaper clippings started to appear in the paper, I was hauled out of school, and there was an investigator for the United States government on the phone, and he asked me to turn over the data. We sent the data into the United States government. We were told about 6 weeks later that we were wrong, that there was no guy on the knoll, that it was a scratch on the film, and basically that we were wrong. Being someone who was just getting into computers, I already knew that that was not possible. The computer could certainly tell the difference between a scratch on a piece of film and a three-dimensional object that is really there. So it was our government's treatment of my particular involvement, at least, in the JFK assassination that really rubbed me the wrong way. What I didn't know at the time is that our government was reinvestigating the case in the House Assassination Committee years. And they, of course, later concluded that there was probably a conspiracy. So here is the same branch, the same congressional committee, telling me that our photos, our analysis of a certain photo does not show a man on the knoll. Yet a few months later, they conclude that there was a conspiracy and that there was a man on the knoll that was shooting. That kind of, again, rubbed me the wrong way because from my point of view, you can't have it both ways. So what I decided to do at that point was to study the assassination very quietly, to spend whatever time it took to learn as much as I could about it. I never thought, honestly, ever, that I would figure it out. I thought this would be one of those mysteries that would never be solved. However, in late 1992, my company, Total Research, in our opinion, we solved the assassination. And we deliberately waited a year to release the information because we wanted to see what additional data was going to come out, because we knew that the publishers were going to release a ton of titles trying to capitalize on the 30th anniversary of the assassination. We also knew additional material was being declassified by the government. And since we had felt that we had the answer, we wanted to see if any new information would come out, including from the Soviet Union, to see if it would torpedo our findings. None of it did. And what we're going to do is reenact the assassination. And I think what differentiates our study from everyone else's is that ours is the only conclusion that you can go home yourself and independently verify. Now, how did we do this? We simply took every book ever published on the assassination, every photograph taken, every movie taken, every unpublished manuscript we could get our hands on, every CIA, FBI, NSA document we could locate. And for 17 years now, we've been putting these into our computers. Tomorrow I will bring in my Macintosh computer, and rather than take my word for it, we will analyze any photos that you want to analyze. We'll address any issues you want to discuss. So I think what's exciting about our study is that you don't have to take our word for it. You can go home, and especially if you own a personal computer, whether it be an IBM, a PowerPC, or Macintosh, you can verify the results yourselves. Now, what is it that we concluded? Well, without sounding too much like a schmuck, I can't really go into detail in about 20 minutes. It takes a little longer than that. It takes a lot longer, actually. But again, the bottom line is that you don't have to accept our word for it. You can go home and check this stuff yourself. We have studied every book from Case Closed, which was a bestseller last year, among other titles, to the original Warren Report. We've corrected all the errors. We'll be going through the Zapruder film, through the relevant frames. That includes everything from when the first shot was fired to the fatal headshot. You will actually see the moment that the bullet went through Governor Connolly and President Kennedy, which is visible on the enhancements. And we will also be going over issues of what it was that people saw on the grassy knoll that caused them to run up on the hill and look for another assassin that was never located. Okay? We'll go over the eyewitness testimonies that have been very popular over the years. We will also show you who it was on the grassy knoll at the time, which can be determined by analyzing these particular photos. The 4 charters of responsibility that Total Research has is philosophy and religion, science and technology, political and social issues, and history, and archaeology. We put the Kennedy assassination under both history and political and social issues because 9 out of 10 people believe there was a conspiracy. If you were to ask 9 out of 10 people whether they believed in God, you wouldn't find a number that high. Yet 9 out of 10 people believe there was a conspiracy. It doesn't really matter whether there was or wasn't one when you look at that question. What matters is that for whatever reasons, 9 out of 10 people have a certain opinion that is either agreed upon or united. Total Research has a charter within those 4 areas to study humankind's most enduring and challenging phenomenon. That's why we study everything from UFOs to who it was who killed President Kennedy. Because we believe that the more we know about these subjects, the more answers we know to these questions, the better off we are as a society. Let's take UFOs, for example. It doesn't matter whether they exist or not, from the standpoint that if they don't exist, then we've got a problem, because on a mass scale, meaning on a planet-wide basis, there's obviously millions of people that must be hallucinating, and we have nothing to lose by knowing about that truth. The same is true about who killed President Kennedy. If it was a conspiracy, the ramifications are very bad. If it wasn't a conspiracy, then why is it that everyone has the belief that there is? I will tell you that most of the people that I have encountered over the years, their opinions of the assassination are based on facts and evidence that they've been exposed to. But what we did in our study is we went back to those original sources of evidence and was able to separate the truth from the fiction. This overview of the analysis, the computer enhancements showing the views through the rifle, timing sequences, stills and the exact moments and frames that Governor Connolly was wounded, President Kennedy was wounded, which all tie into whether there was a second gunman or not, or how many shots were fired. And then photos that have never been published before in any Kennedy book ever are of the actual forensic evidence. The motivation for the study was to get to the truth. I felt that when we got to that truth, it would have been a shame to keep it all to ourselves, and that's why we are releasing the data. The motivation for doing this is to release the information to the public. It's not driven by a desire to make a ton of money or do something like Oliver Stone did, but it's more to confront an issue that I grew up with as a kid, even though I was only 18 months old at the time when President Kennedy was assassinated. And I think it's probably safe to say that everyone since that time, ever since that murder happened, has been affected in one way or another. Certainly the American political system has. We found a person on the knoll who, by all previous accounts, that person had not been there. Our computer analysis that we did at NASA at the time, back in 1977, when computer image enhancement processing was just coming into its own commercially at the declassified level, showed that the object was three-dimensional, showed that there was an object in the person's hand, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the committee later concluded that there was a gunman on the knoll and that that second assassin had fired a pistol based on the acoustical match. So we used edge enhancement, false color contouring, and a three-dimensional object that is in a photograph simply does not profile the same way that a scratch on a film does, which is two-dimensional and is only surface level. So we were using those tests to, tell whether this was real or not.